Hello and welcome. I'm Sean Dubay.
I'm Patrick Quinlan.
And this is Supporting Actors, a podcast about the art, business, and craft of acting from the perspective of two sometimes working actors.
Yeah, and today we're talking about the Venn diagram that is the jocks and the theater nerds. And they overlap just a little bit, and that's where Sean and I stand quite a bit. And we want to break down the metaphor of pursuing acting, why it sometimes feels like a sport, and why it sometimes is not at all like sports.
That Venn diagram, I think, is there's more overlap than I think people appreciate. And
Actors and
jocks.
jocks.
Yeah,
Well, a lot of pro jocks want to be actors. I
for
mean,
sure.
have
Right.
production
Well,
companies now.
yeah, and they're
So
theatrical in their own way, right? Like when they're
sure,
playing
yeah,
sport, and and this kind of gets in the way that some of what leads people to compare sports with acting is there's a lot of preparation, and then you let it go, and you kind of figure out and you trust yourself to solve the problem in the moment, right? So like there's a lot of very similar challenges between the two things, but also like they couldn't be further from each other, right? Which I think is also kind of fun. One is very emotional, and the others are tend to be very physical, right? Unless you're
sure.
bowling, in which case it's still physical, but it's like a skill. It's different. It's still a totally different thing. But anyways, so why do people compare acting to sports? I think kind of very similar to what I was just saying. You train, you perform, you get results. Acting's a little different. You train, you audition, you wait, you throw the scripts out and you say like I'm never gonna get another audition again, and then they call you to tell you you're pinned, and then you're like, whoa, oh my god, let me cancel my plans, and then they tell you, wait, hold on, we might go with someone else, we're gonna avail, and then now your soul is crushed, and then they call you to tell you got the job, but it's going to film on a day that you had a vacation planned, and now you have like so there's just so many other things that are involved in what we do versus sports, and I maybe I'll cut that because I got way off topic, but um,
No, I
yeah,
think yeah, I think that's I mean what people compare acting and sports, I think because we're always looking for how to make something tangible. And
yes,
so much of acting is um is imagining and not doing anything, like learning lines is like and thinking about your character. There's very little to do, but we want to think like, how do I work hard? And athletes go to the gym or go to practice, like there's a practice, I suppose, a dedication
sure.
to a goal that is similar for actors. um but they differ a lot. I mean, like you're saying, like I think when people think about sports and acting, I think one thing is they think about like the idea of making it, right? Like
Yes.
becoming like, but the thing is like anybody can become an actor, and you have to be probably a certain height and skill level to be a NBA basketball player. Like
Sure. Well, but I
there's a
think
metric talent that a physical, like, you have to run a certain speed, you have to be able to throw a certain miles per hour. There's different, I don't know,
but I
like
think there's a level of engaging
prerequisites.
with your imagination, right? That's the acting equivalent, right? It's like it's imagination, it's emotional vulnerability, it's emotional accessibility. It's a different thing. It's a psychological playing field, right?
Yeah,
It's in so many ways versus a physical one, and I think that's why so many of the so much of the preparation is mental, right? Like that's the stage that we are performing in is this like intellectual exercise or this mental exercise. I don't want to say intellectual because it's not intellectual. It's actually like quite the opposite, right? But it's still a psychological phenomena that we're
yeah,
experiment that we're performing in.
and I think that like there's a mental game,
Yep,
right? So like in
and
some
that
ways you can
that does
compare it to
align with
golf or
sports.
tennis or
Hmm.
something like that, where you know it is your preparation, but it's all how you approach the task at hand, and then like you mentioned, the freedom. I
Yeah.
mean, I think too, they're both fun. They're things you do when
Yes.
you're kids. I think that would be the the thing that I would want to hold on to as my son is learning to kick a soccer ball right now and pick up a ball, and it's like, oh yeah, fun. Like,
Yeah.
and when we start doing voices eventually one day, and like,
Yeah.
improvising or whatever, it's like this is supposed to be fun, even though there is a professional component to it. Like it is a
Yeah.
dream come true type of job.
There's a sense of play, right?
Yeah.
And that it does overlap in both categories. I think the major difference between them, though, is like sports are objective. There's an objective outcome. Maybe you could argue refereeing it injects some subjectivity into sports, but by and large, you kick the goal, you win the race, you jump the hurdle, right? Like there's a irrefutable outcome for sports, and for acting, it's so subjective, and it's entirely about the person that's watching the tape, right?
Yeah.
If we're
Yeah,
thinking
there's
about
no
competing,
referees.
yeah, right. There's no referees, and there's also not an objective outcome. I mean, you can try to imagine that, like, or the objective outcome is I book the role, but and there are actors that book more roles than others, but that doesn't necessarily make them a better actor, right? Um,
Mhm.
Maybe there's some things that they're doing that you could learn from, but I would say it's more like they are maybe have more faculty over their instrument, right? That gives them more
Right.
flexibility, or they might just naturally be a type that lends itself to a lot of stories. That's the other thing too. Like if you have a good actor who's like kind of a middle grade person, they could probably get a lot of work, right? Like if they're, or if you're super unique, you could get a lot of work, right? It's like there's, we all know people that just have that like look and vibe about them where it's like you kind of work in some as something in every story, and like those people do work a lot.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I think like
I mean, that's the equivalent of being 7 foot and playing basketball, right? Is it's like there is a physical component in that way.
but
You
not
look
everyone has to be LeBron, right?
no,
Like and a basketball team still kind of works for this metaphor because there are five players on it, and then there's a bench. Like you
yeah,
fill a television show or you cast a movie, you are creating a world around maybe a LeBron, like you know, like a Denzel Washington. The casting director's job and the director's job is to have everyone other actor be able to play well with Denzel, and then also tell the story too,
Mhm.
right? So they're not that there's a reason they don't throw every big name superstar. You don't have superstar act like movies filled with. I mean, you
Dream
do
team.
actually.
Yeah, right. Sometimes, well, even more.
Sometimes you
I
do.
mean, more
If
so
the premise is
lately.
really light, it
Yeah.
tends to be more
Or I mean,
names.
look at the Chris Nolan Odyssey, right? Like that's it. That's a dream team,
That's true.
right?
Yeah.
That's what that is.
There are
There
going to
is.
be some people in there though that are not famous, like because I
Oh yeah.
imagine there's going to be a lot of actors. But yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Uh, no, I mean, I don't know. It's interesting. Well, what do you? Maybe we should separate first.
Sure.
Like,
Yeah. Let's get more structured.
do you want to talk about what parts of being an actor feels similar to sports, or would you rather break it out into auditioning and acting to get like in a collaboration?
Let's look at the ways that acting and sports are similar.
Great.
And I think there is a lot that you can learn from sports preparation mostly. And
Yeah,
then, maybe from a little bit from if you're watching performance. And I think what you'd want to be looking for is like how the best performers are incredibly free in their craft,
sure.
right? Like if you look at Tom Brady playing football, that dude's very loose when he's on the field, right? Like he
Yeah.
is just so present, and his body just knows what to do to make the thing happen. And he just takes all that stuff in, and it's like instinctual.
Yeah.
And we're trying to do the same thing as actors.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's an interesting comparison because I think too, when you're on set, you you are managing your energy all day.
Yeah.
because you have to be ready to perform in this small window where they call it between action and cut when it's your turn and the
Mhm.
camera's pointing at you. You have to perform when the camera's not on you and they're filming your partner or the series regular or whatever. And then
Yep.
in between, you've got to go to fittings, you've got to like sit around and wait, you've got to like,
Hmm.
but you've got to keep your energy up and you're managing it all day. It does make me think a little bit of sports documentaries where you see the like you like if you watch the David Beckham documentary, it's like he's retired and but he's so meticulous and it's like, "Oh, I know what you were like in a practice facility." Like
Yes.
how many penalty kicks did he probably kick,
Oh,
each
right.
day or whatever. And you get or you see them like gearing up for a game in Hard Knocks or something and like the relaxation beforehand, the sort of rituals, the routines to be able to then perform in that little window. So much time is outside of the act itself, I suppose.
Right. Most of the time is
Yeah.
not performing, right? And that's true in both capacities. Most of the time is preparation.
Yeah.
And I think it's also similar in the way that when you see an athlete working on drills, right, they're working on improving one aspect of their performance, right? And they're trying to make a measurable gain there. But when they go to perform and they're going to play in the game, they're not thinking about the drill, right? You
Yeah.
just trust it to be there. And we need to do the same thing as actors. We go to class to work on specific techniques, to
Yeah.
work on specific emotional availability, or whatever you happen to be working
Scene
on.
analysis, like
Scene
hitting your
analysis,
operative
you
words,
yeah,
whatever. Yeah.
and you want to get reps in and you want to help figure out your process. And when you're doing a rehearsal, you're looking for these like tent pole like moments where you kind of know, like, all right, it's um where you kind of know what's happening, right? Like where you really understand, like, oh, I really get this moment. So that way, no matter what happens before, I know that I need to be here emotionally for this beat, right? And then the next thing that I understand is there. So like there's a lot of freedom in between these things, but I know I need to get there for the next part of the story, right? Like emotionally. So you start thinking about that stuff and you're laying down these like guideposts and you're laying down this like technique, right? Rehearsal can be technical at times. You got to hit your mark and look at the right direction, right? That's very technical. But then in the ideal case, when you get to the performance of it, you're not thinking about that at all. And I know like I've had that experience, especially with like, marks and eye lines where, you're talking through it, you really get focused, and then they call action and I don't think about it at all. And they'll be like, got it, thank you. And I'm like, okay, great, I'm glad because I wasn't really trying to do it.
Yeah, you're making me think. You just made me pop into my head. I don't know where this is coming from, but Andre Agassi, I think, in his autobiography, talks about this period of time where he wasn't living up to his standards and he was struggling, and it all was he was obsessed with this one piece of his serve that wasn't working, and it's like the more he fixated on a problem, the worse it got. And I
Yeah.
think an actor can relate to that in a self tape
Yep.
or in a class where it's just like this word I cannot remember this one word, or I'm in they're calling action and all of a sudden I forgot how to hold a phone. Like
Yeah.
so I'm thinking about, like, oh, I've been practicing my lines, but now that I have this set in front of me and there's this phone I'm supposed to be talking into, this
Yes.
doesn't feel natural yet,
Right.
like, um, but the but I think maybe too in film and television, at least, not theater necessarily, you can cheat it too. They can say like, "Oh yeah, Sean, do one take where you're really pissed and then do another take where you're honing it down and we'll fix it so it
Well,
looks real smooth story
but
for you."
that's part of the art of filmmaking, right? And
Yeah,
like,
there's
so
freedom in that too.
there is freedom in that, but that's also a technique you have as an actor working with your director to help tell the story, right? And a great example of this is William Dafoe in um, in Psycho, American Psycho, right?
Hmm.
So there's a scene where he's interrogating Patrick Bateman, Christian Bale's character, and they played it two ways. that it's just a conversation. He doesn't get what he wants, and then he's a suspect. And the more they talk, the more he thinks he's the suspect, right? And like, so they played it both ways, but when they cut the movie together, they used both options and they changed it out. So when you watch the movie, you are like, oh fuck, he knows, he doesn't know. He knows,
Yeah,
he
you're
doesn't know. Right?
disoriented
Yeah,
and you're
yeah,
not
but it puts you so in the place of the Patrick Bateman, the
Bateman.
character,
Yeah.
right? Because it's his perspective. So like that was a technique that they used deliberately to give the audience the sensation that the character might be experiencing, right? So like that's a valid technique that you might have. Um, I think that, and that's something that you need to talk to your director about, and it's maybe something that is not, you're not necessarily taught in class, and it's one of those things that when you get on a professional set and you work with big name people, you'll start to see some of this. They will
Mhm.
use 3 or 4 takes to, almost like rehearsals, like experiment or like build in layers and nuance to their character, and then they kind of get that thing up and running, right?
Yeah.
But so like they might do a take that's like really weepy, and then they do one that's angry, and then that one that's inquisitive, and then all of a sudden this fourth take is that's like, holy shit, this is wild and exciting, and it's all over the place, and like, they're working on layers of that character, but that's something that the director is aware of, that they know that they're going to
Hmm.
have. That could just be like them offering options, right? And like that's something that I feel like isn't talked about a lot, but is a valid technique in our performance, right? In our sport, if you will, that we have that as our at our disposal. A bit of a tangent on technique, but
There's other people a part of our art too
yeah.
versus sports. Our teammates are our other actors, but in TV and film, they're the director, the cinematographer, everyone who's contributing to that
Well,
moment, right?
even in theater, your director is
Yeah.
contributing, right? Because they're responsible for the overall impression that the audience receives. So they're telling you mostly, like, I feel like good theater directors are going to give you like blocking, right? And like, but this is another way that acting feels like sport. It feels
There's
like
coaches.
a
Yeah.
team sport, right? It's like, yeah, there's coaches, there's guidance, um, there's
There's
but
rehearsals or
it's
practice.
rehearsals, it's practice, it's a collaboration, right? Like you
Mhm.
can't do it all, you can't play every role, so you have to trust everyone else to do their job,
Yeah.
right? And like that ultimately comes together.
I guess before it feels like we're gonna want to jump into not why it's not like sports, but before we
Yeah,
do,
yeah.
I shared this link with you, and I don't know, we can put it somewhere. It's from New York Times Magazine, like 2012, and it's a great piece. I remember reading it when it came out and talking about it with other actors because it that's what it does feel like to try to break into Hollywood, and it's this piece that profiles uh, like a collegiate athlete who is just good enough to make the practice squads of the
Mhm.
NFL teams, but
Yeah,
not quite breaking, getting the attention to make it to the full roster. And so he's getting bounced around from different teams.
yeah.
And there's one line in it that I I just skimmed over and I was like, oh yeah, this is this paragraph I remember, and it's about like he gets assigned a number, he gets the wrong number, so the coaches don't even know who he is. And you can imagine, right, like sending a self tape out and it getting mislabeled somewhere along the lines, and it feels like you're not getting your shot
Yeah.
because of something that has nothing to do with you. But they said being an undrafted free agent in the NFL is an extended exercise in ego abnegation. And I was like, yeah, that's a lot like acting, just a lot of ego death, you know.
Yes.
Like a lot of close calls, rejection, um, for something that that, and you want to get up and you want to try again. And this guy is like willing to get on planes, leave his, live in just empty apartments, like for this dream. And there's that parallel to it, I suppose.
There is. I do. All right, so this is another thing that we're maybe like getting off into, or even more into that territory. So these athletes, right, are largely being drafted and maybe I'm answering my own question here, but they're largely being drafted or employed based on their peak potential,
Hmm.
right? Uh, so people are looking at their data over time, how they perform on the field. They're looking at other measurable metrics, whether it's the bench press, 40-yard dash, shuttle drill, whatever. They're trying to quantify potential, right?
Hmm.
So like you have some people that are very talented that maybe don't have that same potential, but they kind of get in the system and they reach a certain level and kind of stall there,
Hmm.
right? Is acting any different, right? So like are we I mean I we're not hired based on potential. Obviously, we're hired based on if someone can imagine us in the role or not. But is there is there a comparison there? Is there a certain level that some people can reach and a higher level that other people can reach? And are the most talented, best people the ones that are employed regularly?
Well, no, they're not, right? Because it's subjective. I mean, that's where it breaks down. But on a broader scope, like I don't know, I'm thinking of like this NBA player Scalabrine. He played for the Boston Celtics and then he played for the Bulls, and he's just this tall. They called him what he played for the Lakers too, White
Yeah.
Mamba. This tall, red-haired guy,
Yeah.
and he speaks to me. He's my inner
Yeah.
he's my inner spirit guide.
Yeah.
There's a video of him playing pickup basketball, and this dude is famous for being like the worst player in the NBA,
Oh,
right?
yes. I know
And
who
there's
you're
a
talking
video of
about.
him
Yes.
crushing dudes who are
Yeah.
like college
Like
players.
D1 players.
Yeah,
Yes.
very good athletes, and he's just like he is just like
Yeah.
rejecting them. He's scoring on them. He has his way with them, and it's like the gap between good and great gets smaller and smaller as you get closer
Yes,
to the top, right?
for sure.
So,
But
there's actors who will never be number one on the call sheet, who you could throw into any production of a show and they would probably blow people away, no matter in a good in a theater town or in a regional theater, in a community theater, of course, that sort of thing.
well, I guess that's kind of like my a bit of my debate though is the and like what prompted that question was are is the difference between an A-list actor and a a series regular, is there are both of them executing at the top of their potential, or has one of them just had fewer opportunities to showcase the ability?
I mean,
Because
those are
that's
two those are
yeah,
two different arenas though too,
that's
right?
true.
Because like you're kind
Well,
of like
less so
saying, oh,
now than ever
being a film
before.
actor might be like a little more prestigious, but now that TV actors making more money these days.
Yes.
um yeah, I don't know, it's like, I think, look, there are, I think any project that we do and that we collaborate on, the number one rule is no assholes, and
Yes.
there's no shortage of assholes that in the industry.
Yeah.
So you don't get rewarded for good behavior. You get rewarded for talent, and you get rewarded because something that you do sells.
Yeah.
So I don't know,
Well,
like they're not
and I
necessarily. You can
think
be
that's what I'm.
showing up and be a total train wreck, and
Yeah.
it's like we got to keep this guy. This guy sells tickets.
Right. Well,
Look at Brando.
yeah.
Like some of his movies are bad. Like
Oh, super bad. Yeah.
he's one of the best ever to do it, and like
Yeah.
some of them, it's like, oh, he phoned it in this whole time, and
Yeah. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, you can't compare. I mean, I guess you can't compare actors is the thing. Maybe we'll do it one day, but
Well, no,
uh,
you can't. I mean, I think that's kind of what I'm getting at too, though. Is like that's another major difference between athletes and actors is that, athletes are all performing at 100% of their capacity, right? Of
mhm,
their physical capacity. Now,
mhm,
the different 100%s, yeah, they're totally different, right? And like White Mamba is closer to Kobe and LeBron than those D1 athletes are to him, right? Like
yeah,
that's
right.
true. There's, at a very high level, like I'm a big fan of motorsport. this metaphor also extends there, right? The fastest driver in Formula One and the slowest driver in Formula One are still the two of the fastest people on earth, right? And
Right,
like the
sure.
difference between them is less than 1%, right?
Right.
So like that's you're looking at such fine margins on a physical, measurable, objective performance. And I think in acting, there is no measurable objective performance, right? Like you can look at a bunch of subjective things, but um, ultimately it comes down to like who do you know and what have you done, right? Like that's ultimately I think the final say for a lot of actors. It's like if you've done 100 things and you know people that have that can provide opportunities, you're probably going to do really well. Or like, and that's also
And there's
part.
but there's still an opportunity
Y-
for being discovered and
yes.
for being like a Christoph Waltz or you know uh, or or being sort of being brought into like I don't know, like a Carrie Coon, who's just like an incredible actress, incredible theater actress, and then like got some TV gigs, and then like momentum built slowly over time, and it's like, oh, I knew who she was way before
Yep.
like she was on White Lotus, and I don't like there's opportunities for breaking in and becoming the or find people seeing who you are, or I guess, and just being the right fit for the role.
Yeah, or
That's a
just
little
people
different.
liking your work, right? Like the more you put out there, the more opportunities there are for people to come across it. And I
Yeah,
think if we tie this into some industry news right now, where YouTubers are the number one and
or
number two, like
directors right
directors right
now.
now, right
Hmm.
this week. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that. It's not just that they're from YouTube and have a built-in audience, but like it's original stories, um, in a way. Backrooms is less so than the other one,
Obsession.
Obsession, yeah. But um, but there's still like original stories done in a unique way on a budget. They're horror movies, which are like notoriously good, like notoriously profitable for like the budget.
Hmm.
So it's like it's wonderful that this stuff is is happening, right? But the reason that happened was because these guys were making something all the time. They grew an
Yeah,
audience, and
they got their reps early.
yeah, right. They got reps in early, right? And they did a lot of it, and they deserve this opportunity. And it's great to see that they're being successful, and well, I mean, it's like in the two studios that are taking risks took risks, right? And like that's being rewarded. That's awesome. But the same also applies to us as actors. We need to be putting stuff out there to give people a chance to see it, which is
Yeah,
why talent is also now starting to become discovered from social media, and
right.
not as like an influencer, but people that put skits out, right? Like there's a bunch of actors now that started on YouTube or started and got opportunities through like being funny on Instagram or TikTok, right? So putting material out there, and that doesn't mean you have to start doing that, but that is kind of like a way to start to grow your audience and to become seen, because like really what you want is for some producer to be like, oh, I follow this person, I think they're entertaining, I want to put them in a movie, right? Like that's the game that we're playing. That's different than what it's like. But again, that's subjective and it's really luck based.
I think it's connected to, like these two examples you're saying, Obsession and Backrooms, like below those two studios are a bunch of other producers who took this risk sooner and saw talent and
Mm.
started championing it, which you see, I think in the sports world you see with like youth athletics and,
Yep.
in baseball, like scouts going
Well,
down
this
to
is the
like
high school
Puerto
kid that
Rico or
goes
whatever.
straight to the NBA, right?
Yeah.
It's
But like um that's a hopeful sign that Hollywood is going to have to diversify where it draws its talent from as well, and
well,
that people
especially
aren't
Obsession doesn't have well-known actors. Like that's
yeah,
a great thing. And I think
yeah,
we're starting to see audiences respond to that too. People are overseeing the same 70 actors and everything, and they want to see
right, playing
other
superheroes, yeah,
people. Right,
yeah.
exactly.
there's a Franklin Leonard thing, it's a little side tangent, but his recommendation for Hollywood at large is to follow the NBA's model of scouting talent around the world and finding audiences around the world for their product.
Mm.
And so he points to the NBA bringing in players from, other countries who are freak athletes where they're from, and then like they they figure out how to fit the system, and you then build this relationship with an audience. And I think he's gone and like found these incredible filmmakers in Africa who are just these young kids making YouTube videos, and he's like, created a documentary around them. So to your point about, you have to be putting yourself out there, you whatever, if it is like sports, which we don't think it totally is, it's, you have to be, what is it that you're doing to have a coach see you putting in reps, like
Right.
play, have someone who could give you a position on the team. How can they see your talent? And so maybe that's social media, maybe that's making your own content, doing theater
Film
and
festivals.
promoting the hell out of it, film
Right.
festivals,
Doing
exactly.
shorts for students, right?
How
Like,
do you become, I think it was Tony Danza who was in some Disney movie about a garbage man who became the kicker for like the Philadelphia Eagles. Like, how do you, because he was kicking cans in the street and people are like, that guy's got a leg. Like, so what is
let's
the
give him a
can you're gonna
chance.
kick?
Yeah. Oh, that's funny.
What
I
are the
think,
ways it's not like sports? Let's say I think
well,
we totally nailed it there, but
yeah. I mean, it's not competition, right? Um,
oh yeah, let's talk to that because it
yes,
feels like it. It can feel like it.
it can feel like it, right? And you know, we sit down and we think about, in an audition, it used to be, especially for commercials, you'd be sitting in the waiting room and you're looking around at like 12 other people that look just like you. And you go, in a lot of the rooms here in Los Angeles too, you could hear the person auditioning before you, which
Hmm.
is like worst case scenario, right? Is it's like everyone looks like me. I can hear them doing whatever they're doing. That's kind of what I was gonna do. Do I change it?
What's
Do it?
what's what's the thought that pops
Yeah.
into your head, you Sean, who when you walk into a room with, like, what is your judgment of of all these other guys who look like you?
Yeah.
Do you have that memory, like being like, oh, okay, we're all, what would you say? We're all X or whatever.
For me, it would be, well, for commercials, it was often like the boyfriend that the daughter's bringing home to meet the dad, right? Like that
Uh-huh.
was like, I got that for
So
a
was
bunch.
it just like
Yeah,
50 Shades of like
pretty much.
uh
Yeah.
of like American Pie, or 50 Shades of like broy douchey, like where do you where
No, no,
like
it
how
would
would
be
you,
more like all American, right?
all
Like
American?
I get called in for like the all American stuff. So
Yeah.
like when you need to sell a youngling to the Midwest, they were like,
Uh-huh.
let's call Sean in. So
Yeah.
that was me.
I
Yeah.
only ask because I would get called in for having red hair, or I have like
Sure.
a version of red hair. And even when I had shorter hair, I don't have bright orange. So it'd be like just, oh, these guys are the bright orange hair guys, and these,
Sure.
and here of us are blonde. And then I would joke, it was like, we were all brothers, obviously, but like, who they cast was depending on how they felt about redheads, how inbred did they want it to look versus how, versus like how normal,
Yeah,
and it would just be
sure.
like, I'm either close or way off. Like I have no control over this.
Yeah, for me, I'm kind of in the middle between like, yeah, dark hair. I would get called in with a lot of like, I would be like the stubble to clean shaven. It's like, oh,
Mhm.
they got dudes with beards, there's dudes with stubble, there's clean shaven, right? And it's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that's kind of like the spectrum that I would be pulled in on.
I gotcha.
So it's just the like, all right, yeah, so we're all kind of like look like bankers, and then
Bankers, the
and
Chase
then
convention.
that's right, yeah, it's a chase convention, or like even like getting called in for like military or something like that. It
Sure.
would kind of be similar things, or it would be, um, yeah, it's mostly facial hair. At least that's what I noticed because I can't grow any to save life. So that
So
sticks
when
out to me. It's
so
like, but if they want a beard, they're gonna go with that dude.
yeah,
It's like, or
so that's the part that feels like competition. Like you are the only one person can get the job.
yes,
But
yes. So that's exactly. So that feels like competition, and it feels like you're competing with the other people, right? But you're really only competing with yourself to bring
yeah,
your best work,
yeah,
right? So if you've prepared, and like I know you hear a lot of stuff from casting, like not from casting directors per se, although sometimes you will, but like you hear a lot of advice on casting that's like make a strong choice in the first few seconds, or um, like do something unique that might not be appropriate, or it's like, and I feel like that's a bit of bad advice in a lot of ways, because really the only thing they want you to be is prepared, right?
yeah.
And like to be interesting and to bring yourself to the role. And I think that some of that, like, make a strong choice or be interesting, I think what we should be hearing is how do you bring more of yourself? How do you make this unique in a way that is personal to you, right? Like that is what we should be doing, because if you're doing that, it's going to be interesting. You might not be
And
right for the
I
role.
would say to that because I think that's can be at times that has felt like a difficult lesson to learn and to
Yep.
figure out. And it's sort of like, oh well, what does that mean, Sean? And I guess like to make it the opposite of sports, I would say like a great way of seeing this, like to just someone who's curious, it would be to watch American Idol or
Mhm.
to watch like later rounds of like when they get closer to the end, or watch RuPaul's Drag Race. All of the people there get celebrated and win, but they all win just by being there. Like they're on TV. They're going to be somewhat more famous than they were before, but they succeed by connecting themselves to the task at hand and like bringing out their inner creativity in these whatever song selection they do, whatever way they style it, and you see the judges give the critiques along those lines and really push people to fully present who they are and
Mhm.
not try to be a thing. And it's interesting to watch those shows from that standpoint, even though there's like reality TV whatever, but like there is a lesson there, I think, for an artist who's trying to show off themselves, right?
Yes. You need to be fully prepared, and that's how you compete. You're competing with
Yeah.
yourself, not with the other actors around you. I think the
And
other
that bold
time,
choice is something that's
yeah,
you, that's your
yes,
point of view, your
right,
experience, your
something that
history,
you're
whatever.
uniquely qualified to show
Yeah.
or say or something, right? So like you're trying to find that in every role, is that like what is the unique part of me that I can amplify here?
And
Yeah,
and you still might not get to the job. You can do that, and you
right.
still might not be the same. That
And
vision won't match the
you
directors
mostly
or the
won't get the job,
producers.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
I,
but
what
there's
about?
also there's not, but I would go so far and be so bold as to say that if you're not right for the role, there's not a choice you can make that's gonna
Yeah.
get you to book it, right? So it's not the best actor getting the role, it's the best actor that's right for the role that gets the role,
Yeah.
right? So like, and that sometimes is intangible, and like it's one of those things that it's unfortunately like casting is a feeling. And like I've worked as a director, so I've gone through casting processes from the other side of the table, and it is just the like, who do I feel makes the best team to do the job, right? It's like you are picking people based on who you think is going to tell the best story.
Yeah.
um
Yeah. Because you are
yeah.
building a team there, and you are um,
Yeah,
taking some
so like,
what's
but then you're just thinking about like, you're thinking about, can they act?
can
That's
they take
like,
direction? Can
can
they
they
take
take
yeah.
direction,
Mhm.
right? Do they seem like a person I want to spend the next 3 months with,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Those are all factors, and like very little of it is talent, necessarily. Like you see talent right away, but like if somebody is talented and right for the role and they flub a line, you're not going to be like, next, they couldn't even get the lines right. Like very few directors are going to do that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
They're, it. it doesn't matter, right? Aaron Paul famously flubbed a line in his audition for Breaking Bad, and look at what that's done for him. So it's like it doesn't matter. Um, I think another way that competition shows up in acting is when you're on set with someone, right? And your scene partners, or maybe it's even in class, right? Let's start with class. Class is another spot where I feel like competition shows up, where I want to be better than them. And then you're thinking, because of that, you're now thinking about your scene while they're doing their scene, and you're not really present with the material that you're.
You're also thinking about a result
Yeah,
rather
you're
than the
thinking about a
process.
result rather than a
Yeah, yeah,
process, rather about the experience of the character, right? So it's like there's a tendency, because we all want to do a good job, we all want to be recognized, right? Every single one of us wants our teacher to be like, "Hey, man, like, I know this agent. I'm going to put you in touch with them," right? Like we all want that, and it's never going to happen. So it's like you have to just be there for the skill development of it, right? And this goes back to it kind of in a way that it is like sports, is that like you're there to get something out of this, and that get something out of this is not to be told you're the best person that's ever done it and like you're done, you figured it out, right? It's like the goal is that you're there to develop something, you're there to work on something, you're there to make a change within yourself, and that's the whole purpose of being there. And you get to a certain point when you've gone to enough classes, and we're definitely at this point where you start to learn more from watching other people than you do from going, right? At least I feel that way, where if I'm going and I can start to see the pieces and how they work, and like it's easier to see what people need to work on from the outside, right? And then that makes it
right.
easier for you to find it in yourself, right? Or to correct, to fix those notes without having to be told, right? If you're seeing it some there. So like it's again just a spot that the competition shows up that it shouldn't. Unless the competition is like in a fun way where we're pushing each other to do better work, but we want to see the other person succeed. And I think that's, in a way, it is like maybe the largest departure in the way that acting is not like sports, is that we need to want to see everyone succeed, whereas in sports, you want the other team to actively fail. Right? It's like you want them
Yeah.
to implode. You want to get in their head. You want to do all this stuff. And that is not a healthy way to work as actors. And it's not going to yield the best result. I don't believe it'll yield the best result most of the time, right?
No,
Again,
you'd have to you
if
would
you're
have to like
hiring good actors, you don't need to
but you
manipulate people per se, right? Although there is a, a great story about Ethan Hawke working
oh,
with
and Philip
yeah
Seymour Hoffman.
Philip
Yeah, yeah,
Seymour
William
Hoffman, yeah,
Dafoe.
working with Sidney Lumet, right? And every day Sidney Lumet would go to each one of them and be like, "Man, I really feel like the other actor is just doing the best work that like has ever been done. Is really something remarkable." And it would just make each of them dig deeper, right? Like they were competing with each other, but in a way that they didn't want the other person to fail. They were like, okay,
Right.
so how do I raise my level to push them for, to like, and like that builds this momentum that is, and it was also that was appropriate for that story that they were telling.
Well, they
But
were brothers, right?
yes,
And
right.
they were both losers who were in
Yeah.
this. It's a great movie.
Yeah.
Only Before the Devil Knows You're Dead. They're
Yeah.
both these loser brothers, but they think they're smarter than the other one, or they think they're. And they were both as actors trying to get Sidney Lumet's fatherly love, right?
Yes, that's right.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah. They
like
took on the persona
he
of the
designed
characters.
it for
Yeah.
them to be not showing up chatting between like getting along as
Yeah.
two well-known, well-regarded actors, but to be like, no, I want them thinking about how to one up the other one
Sure.
when we call action. So you're like, his book is great
His book
read,
is great.
and it's the
Making
best
movies. Yeah.
version of manipulating actors because
Well, but
it's
I
for the
think,
story and it's totally
but
harmless.
it's harmless, right? But
It's
that's the
not,
thing.
yeah.
It's like it's it's still from a good place, right?
Yeah.
And it is from the shared goal of wanting to see everyone succeed,
And I
right?
think it
It's
was
like,
also taking people who are already at a very high level and
oh,
just being like,
yes.
can I just make sure you're not phoning it and just like make you go a little
Uh-huh.
bit
Uh-huh.
further?
Yes.
Um,
Uh, for sure. But but that's a way that competition it can be like competition, right? And like
Yeah, if you're
in
in a
clown
scene.
work, yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Well,
Yeah.
so in clown work, what I was taught is like they called this complicité, right? Which is like it's cooperative competition. You're competing with the other person, but you want to see them succeed. So it's like I'm going to try my best and my hardest to make you look better, and you're going to try your best and your hardest to make me look better. And by doing that, it's like you you find new ways. Like you're trying to dig in deeper, and you become competitive in a true performance like sense where you're trying to quote unquote win an unwinnable thing, and that becomes really fun. But you want to see the other person win as much as you want to win, right? Like, and that's like the difference.
Yeah, I think there's, well, and I think it, most scenes, scene work, especially between
Yep.
two characters in a scene, there ultimately there's conflict of some sort, and
Right.
it's a
And,
fight. So it can be a romantic
well,
comedy or it
yeah.
can be a drama. There's always a point. There's always it's a tennis match or a
There's always
boxing
a
match.
game in the scene,
There's a
right?
game where it's like, oh,
Yeah.
Sean, I let Sean talk first. He gets a point, or like,
Yeah.
like, oh, he's letting me talk now. I'm gonna, okay, here I am,
Yeah.
and you go back and forth, and you want to find that,
And
and when you
it's
find that with another player who's giving you, surprising you, then
yeah.
it comes alive, right?
Right, for sure, because then you have to be really present, right? And then that is I guess, a way that it is like sports, right? Like you are there's this back and forth, and it is you're trying to win the game, and like your character might not get what you want in that scene, but you could still win it, right?
Yeah,
Like, but that is a constructive way of competition that does present itself, but that's kind of the only one, in my opinion, for acting,
yeah. There's
right?
a great I was just gonna reference
Yeah.
another. Bruce Dern has a book, an autobiography, and I when I first moved to LA, someone said get a PO box because your mailbox in your apartment will get broken into. So I had this PO box in Santa Monica. It's not there anymore, and I would drive wherever I lived in LA. I had it for years. I would drive to Santa Monica every now and then pick up mail, and Bruce Dern was my neighbor in my mailbox.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy shit, Bruce Dern? And he was on Big Love at the time. And I was like, what's the, I was like, gosh, I don't know much about him. Like, I just know he's been around. And it turned out he had an autobiography, and or a memoir. I read it, and it's a phenomenal read for just a guy who's been an actor for a long time and did not get the breaks he wanted until later in life, but he was friends with everybody. Like he was friends with Jack Nicholson, right?
Yeah.
And he recounts a story where Nicholson and Brando are in this western called One-Eyed Jacks, and Nicholson was like, Dernsey, you're gonna watch this movie and you're gonna tell me who wins, me or Brando. And I think it was he watched the movie, or maybe he was on set. I don't remember, but he was like, Jack would think of all these things to do, and he'd burst into the scene, and Brando would be wearing like a women's dress and speaking in an Irish accent all out of nowhere. And it totally made sense for the character because his character was a liar or something, but it would just throw him. And he was just like, Jack, Brando won. And I think he like kicked him out of his house and said, like, but like they Nicholson also, my other memory of that book is Nicholson having had a, he called do a Dernsey, and it was like whenever Derns made it a little moment, did something he could do in the scene that would be not another line but just a thing he'd notice, whatever, and he'd pull a Dernsey and it would just give it a little personal touch. And you're like, that's the freedom, that's the job, and as much as the anxiety and the that we feel a competition, but you are ultimately just trying to be like, does it make the movie better, does it make the product
Yeah.
better?
So I think a way that this gets weaponized and is not a healthy manifestation of competition is when you try to do things to like win coverage, right?
Yeah. Oh,
This
for sure.
this
Or
can
steal
happen,
focus if you're
or
on
steal
stage or
focus
whatever.
on
Yeah.
stage, right? Yeah, this would be like doing something that upstages the drama, right? Try to make the scene about you when it's not,
Or
or
forcing the comedy or the story in
that's
an improv or something.
that's right, yeah. So like, that happens, but like I think in film, the way that it tends to manifest is, I'm going to shortchange. Like if we're in a scene together, and it's time for your close up, I'm gonna like fuck around in a way that is not
Yeah.
constructive for you, right?
Yeah.
That that's unprofessional, right? You don't want to try to make your other actor look bad so that way you look better. Like that's not good competition. That's not fair competition, right? That's not playing the game. That's being selfish, and eventually that attitude will find you out of a job, I think, because people will catch on eventually, right? Because like when you go to edit, you're like, well, why is this terrible? And you hear the other coverage, even if you're not on camera, you hear the lines, and you're like, oh, he's like phoning it in. He doesn't care, right? And it's like
Yeah.
that's that's awful. Or like yeah, it's just like finding ways to manipulate the coverage, manipulate the edit to get more screen time in a way that's not in service of the story, but is in service of you. That's gross. And
Yeah.
that's not healthy competition. And that's not someone that other people want to work with.
Right. Yeah. It's a ball hog, right? To go
Yes.
back to sports, like it's just someone who's like you gotta pass the rock, and you gotta like share, and like we're all here for the same purpose. Yeah. All right. I just had this memory pop in my head of being in acting class in college, and I had this director, teacher, Jonathan Wilson, and we had this scene from it was like one of the I had a scene with another actress, and um and he gave us feed notes, and we did it again after you'd rehearse it every week or something. You perform it more than once, and whatever note he gave me was to put all my attention roughly on her and to really just help her to have this great scene. And and I remember he was like, oh, you did it. Like, you made her better. You Everything you did like improved her story. He's like, if we're giving awards, she you would be nominated for supporting actor. Everything you did was in service of her story, and she'd be nominated for the best actress. She'd win because of what you did.
Yeah.
You wouldn't win your award because it wasn't show offy enough. He's like, you win
Right.
awards
Sure.
by showing off. But it's like, since we named this supporting actors, that's one of the reasons like I resonate with the name, is this idea of like, no, your job is to make everyone else look good. The director's job is to sell the story, and in my opinion, mostly not show off, and show that, like, so that everyone
Yes.
gets sucked in to this shared imagination,
It should
right?
just be about the story.
Yeah. So we should be supporting, and that's where it's it is that's where it's more like curling, I suppose. No.
Sure. Well, and that's the way that it's like a team sport in the way
Yeah.
that you're all working together for a singular outcome, only that outcome is not objective.
Yeah, and on a day to day, it's not like sports, because I don't if you are lucky enough to be a professional athlete, like there's a uh whole system built to helping you. When you Even if you're a professional actor, it stops, right? The production ends, and you go back to being an unemployed actor. You might have a team that you pay for to take
Mhm.
care of yourself, but that if they wanted you to get in shape for that last movie, that dietitian is gone.
Right.
That
Whatever they paid for is done. Yeah.
that acting coach is gone. That's on your dime now. Yeah, like there's no investment into the off season, I suppose,
Right.
right? In terms of these industries. So it's like there is no season for an actor. It's the job could come at any time, but maybe finding that rhythm is hard. It's not the same as like, all right, it's fall, time to put on the football pads.
Right. It's more about like the seasons of life than it is about about the year.
Well, and strangely, you know what? That makes me think like it's more about the the practice of a sport, like
Yes.
the archery, the zen and the art of archery, right? Like
Yeah.
it's the zen, it's yoga, it's what are you
Yes.
doing that you feel you can bring your full
Mhm.
self to every time you do it, regardless of outcome.
Yeah.
And and I think that that's hard. Like, right? That's
Yes.
incredibly hard. So to be like, no, sports is better analogy because I want to work. I want to get a result. I want the goal to happen.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and I think like sports is a useful metaphor in the way that it can inspire work or,
sure.
can talk about how you approach some of these things. Like in both cases, you need to be ready for the opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's right.
there is overlap there. Overall, what we are judged on, totally not relatable, right?
Yeah.
It's
Right.
like working harder as an actor does not guarantee an outcome.
And your batting at your like audition average, like those are important things to keep track of. Rewatching your self tapes might be a helpful exercise to learn about your
Yep.
process and to craft what you want. But that doesn't directly connect to like you're going to hit more home runs or whatever, right? Or you're going to
Right.
make less mistakes. It's like, no, you still, that won't necessarily convert to jobs.
No. Right. Looking at a callback percentage, it's not, I mean, it's interesting data. I don't know if it's useful because you
It
have no
might, if it makes you
control.
feel good, go for it.
Yes, but you have
Yeah.
no control over that number, right?
But
So
that,
like,
that percentage could stay the same for the next year and you might not get any jobs, right?
right. Yeah.
Um,
So, yeah. So like, you would be better off tracking like how long does it take you to prepare your self tape and like monitoring the variance, right? Where
sure.
like that would be more of a useful KPI. Um, but it's like it's really difficult to come up with things in your control as an actor if you're trying to quantify an objective outcome because
I mean,
so much of the end result is not in your control.
and so much of what it is to be an athlete is to have the outsider experts looking at you, an
Yeah.
agent, a talent scout, a trainer, the rehab specialist, the quarterback coach. Like
Yeah.
there are multiple eyes on a person analyzing different things of their performance, and that's pretty much impossible to replicate on a day to day for just an actor,
Yes.
right? Like it's hard enough
Yes.
to get a reader. Like
Yeah.
now you want a reader you trust to give you an
Yeah.
opinion or coach you or something, right?
I
Like
mean, the only time you have anything even close to that is like in drama school.
my one takeaway from this, and I've had this thought of like trying to explain what it is to like audition, right? And it's
Mhm.
like whether it's in person or self tape, it's like um can you imagine being in the home run derby and they turn out all the lights and you still have to hit a home run and
Right.
you won't know how far the ball went. You'll know how it felt hitting your bat. You'll know if you
Mhm.
made contact, but like other than that, you have no idea. And they
Yeah.
never tell you who wins until
Right.
a year from now when the project comes out.
Right.
But or it could be like, trying to kick a field goal or shoot a free throw, and sometimes you feel like you're getting iced and like
Sure.
they call a timeout like, oh, we're breaking for lunch right before my audition. And now you're the mind games. But other than that, it's such a like non there's so many variables that just don't quite correlate to me.
So like there's an interesting thing in sales, right? Where and the metric's kind of been disproven, but I'll use it anyways in this metaphor because I think it's useful. You know, somebody has to see something 7 times before they click on it once, right?
Right.
And you got to think about that with like if you're in a casting office and they've seen you a bunch and they keep calling you in, like the producer that's going to hire you probably needs to see you 7 times on 7 different projects before they finally say yes, right? And it's like if you're consistently good over and like that is years. That's like a long, long time, right? Because unless
Yeah.
they're a prolific producer, maybe once every 2 to 5 years they're making something,
Right.
so it's like and you need to see a lot of people and that ratio is going to be different for everyone, but it's like on average that's the game we're playing. It's like this really big like sales pitch of like, here's my material, do you like it? And it's like someone needs to see you often enough to become a fan, and that's
Right.
takes a long time.
Yeah, you have to build a body of work, and
Yes,
that work is the proof that you will be able to do the next job, and it
right.
also showcases all of the different sides of you. Yeah. So I mean, we get back to marketing
Yes,
there, which
is not a part of sports at all. So again, furthering the difference between the two things. We are more like a business. Or, if we're like sports at all, we're like sports betting, right? Because it's like
oh,
we're gambling. We're gambling every day. We are the biggest gamblers that we know. We are betting on ourselves every day. And that's like totally different uh, than sports, where you have an objective control over your outcome. Anyways, this was a fun episode. Hopefully, it has made people think about the ways in which this is and is not like sports. We will continue to use sports metaphor because we both enjoy sports, and it's an easy way to talk about something. But if acting is a sport, I think it's pretty clear that it is not.
yeah, I think yeah, I would be curious to hear people's thoughts. So they
Yeah.
should write into the show.
Right. Ask at supportingactors.com. Or, hit us up on in the comments of Instagram, or leave us a review here, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you are listening to this. All right, so let's wrap up with some ad libs.
Yeah,
So, fun things in our lives. All right, my ad lib is Folk's Pizzeria, just opened up at the Helms Bakery, and they've got great bread, great pizza. It was a great environment. They just opened up at the beginning of May, so they're still kind of new. I don't know that they're doing delivery yet or takeout, but
mm,
it's well worth going. Folk's Pizzeria. It's on Washington in Culver City.
nice. I'm almost done with a novel I mentioned in one
Mm.
of the earlier episodes, Violent Masterpiece by Jordan Harper, and it's daring me to stay up late and keep reading every night, and I've also been in just going to bed, but I'm almost done with it. I'm probably going to finish it this weekend. It's incredible read. Stephen King just shouted him out on Twitter the other day, and like
Hmm.
compared this to Silence of the Lambs, and it's got a serial killer. Um, it's got a sort of like Epstein, did he commit suicide element to it. Like it's very contemporary, and you have these three characters you're bouncing between the different worlds that they inhabit in LA. And there's one dude who's a night crawler. And the fun part for me about it is that aside from it being a totally gripping, well written, incredibly written story, um, it's set in LA, and so he just
Hmm.
every chapter heading tells you who the character is that you're going to follow and the locations they're going to be at, which he did in his previous book, Everybody Knows. And so like it'll take you from Inglewood to Echo Park to Hollywood to K-Town to Culver City, and he'll shout out different like food options in the area, and I was like, oh, I gotta figure out what that restaurant is where that sounds good. Like I
Yeah.
wonder where that truck's posted up. Meanwhile, as like chaos is total insanity in the story, but I'm just like, I know these are real food spots that he put in. I want to find them.
That's
So
super funny.
it's a fun read if you enjoy like Los Angeles locations, I suppose.
Okay, great. Good to know. All right, well, this has been Supporting Actors. I am Sean Dubay,
I'm Patrick Quinlan.
and tune in next week when Patrick and I try to solve the mystery of the Bermuda Triangle.
We'll get to the bottom of it.
And we might be at the top. No.